Hello dear students, welcome to the Darasa Online. I'm Madugegema, a biology teacher. I'm going to present to you biology. In biology, particularly, I'm going to present a topic of gaseous exchange and respiration. Gaseous exchange and respiration. A subtopic of gaseous exchange. In a particular part of respiratory surfaces. Dear student, before we discuss the respiratory surfaces, we need to understand a bit a concept of gaseous exchange. The gaseous exchange, this is a process whereby the respiratory gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen, are exchanged between the organism and the environment. Mainly, there are two types of gaseous exchange, or two places where the gaseous exchange takes place in the body of an organism. And here we are going to concentrate with mammals, a particular human being, to represent the mammals. So, in human being, gaseous exchange occur in two sites. There is what we call external gaseous exchange and what we call the internal gaseous exchange. What the difference between the two? When we talk of the external gaseous exchange, this is the exchange of the respiratory gases between the environment and the lungs of an organism. So it's the exchange of the gas between the environment or the surrounding and the lungs. This is we call external, because it's where the oxygen from the environment diffuse into the lungs, and the carbon dioxide from the lungs diffuse into the environment. The mechanism of gaseous exchange is by diffusion. So here, the partial pressure of oxygen in the environment is higher than the partial pressure of oxygen in the lungs. Therefore, oxygen will diffuse from the area of high partial pressure or higher concentration to the area of low concentration. Likewise, the blood reaching the lungs contain large amount of carbon dioxide, such that the carbon dioxide will diffuse from the lungs, capillaries, to the environment. So this will be given out as a waste product, and this will be taken by the blood capillaries of the lung, which is then carried to the respiring tissues. Another exchange occurs in respiring tissues. The respiring tissues need oxygen. and produce carbon dioxide. That is, the carbon dioxide will diffuse from the respiring tissues where it is produced as a result of the respiration process into the blood. Then it will be carried by the blood to the lung and then taken outside the body. The oxygen will diffuse from the blood into the respiring tissues, where it is used as a raw material for respiration. Dear student, so the general concept of gaseous exchange is principally basing on the two gases which are exchanged between the two sides. So the first exchange occurs in the lung, where carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood capillary into the environment, then given out. The oxygen from the environment in the respiratory system, it diffuses into the lung. Then it is carried by the blood to the respiring tissues. In the respiring tissues, because there is low partial pressure, of oxygen. Then oxygen will diffuse from the blood into the respiring tissue. Likewise, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in respiring tissues is higher. Carbon dioxide will diffuse into the blood and then carried to the respiratory surface. Dear student, the respiration is a very vital process. The gaseous exchange is a very vital process in the body of an organism, simply because it supplies oxygen gas needed by the body for respiration. And the major products of respiration is energy. The energy produced as a result of the respiration is used by the body to make it alive or to drive the metabolic processes which make the body alive, such as the heartbeat, blood circulation, nerve transmission, contraction and relaxation of muscles, the reproductive system or the formation of the cell by cell division need the energy. Therefore, let us see now the respiratory surface. Our discussion will be guided by questions. Let us see question number 1. The question number 1 reads, how are the respiratory surfaces adapted to the function they perform? Dear student, the question needs how these are adapted to perform the function they perform. But you must first understand what are the functions of the respiratory surfaces and what are the examples of the respiratory surfaces. Respiratory surfaces, these are specialized part of the body, or they are special organs in the body of an organism where gaseous exchange takes place. That is respiratory surfaces. The major respiratory surfaces differ from one organism to another, and mainly depends on the environment where that organism is found. The terrestrial organisms, they have different respiratory surface compared to the aquatic, meaning that every respiratory surface, it operates in its own environment. The major respiratory surfaces, we have the following. We have the gills. The gills, these are the respiratory surfaces mainly. These are used by aquatic animals, many fishes. These are used by fishes. So the gaseous exchange in fish takes place in the gills, where oxygen in the form of dissolved oxygen diffuse from the water current into the bloodstream, and the carbon dioxide diffuse from the bloodstream of the gill slits into the water current. Another respiratory surface is the lungs. The lungs, these are the major respiratory surface for higher animals, including mammals. And the mammals, the human beings, are there. So is the respiratory surface for mammals, respiratory surface for reptiles, respiratory surface for the aves, and the adult amphibia. So they use the lung to exchange the respiratory gases, to take in oxygen and take out the carbon dioxide as a waste product. Dear student, another respiratory surface is the trachea. The trachea, this is the respiratory surface for all insects, that is used by insects. So the insect, they respire by using the trachea system. Another respiratory surface, these are the book lungs. These are used by arachnids. They respire by book lungs. They are known as book lungs because their lungs resemble the pages of a book. Another respiratory surface, this is the skin. Skin also is used as a respiratory surface. Mainly this is used by earthworms, and adult amphibians when in water. For example, the toad, these are the amphibians. They are terrestrial, but when they need to reproduce, they go back into water bodies. So when they're in water bodies, they respire by using the skin. But when they're in terrestrial, they use the lungs. And the young amphibia, they also use gills. The young, they are known as the tadpole stage. Another respiratory surface is a cell membrane. This is used by the simple organisms or unicellular organisms. Because they are single-celled, the organism is the cell. So the exchange between the membrane. So the microorganism, including amoeba, the Plasmodium, Trypanosoma, they use cell membrane as their exchange zone of their respiratory gases. They take out carbon dioxide and in oxygen. Dear student, knowing this respiratory surface, we can now tell the adaptations of these organs to the function they perform. All of these, we have mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have common features for the function they perform. The common features for this are the following. Common features of respiratory surface are all respiratory surfaces. They have thin membrane. Knowing this feature, you need to know the advantage of it for the functioning of the respiratory surfaces. The advantage of thin membrane of the respiratory surface. 1, it enables the gases to diffuse very easily. So the thin the membrane, the easier the diffusion of gases across it. So oxygen and the carbon dioxide will diffuse easily, and hence minimize the time for the gaseous exchange. That is the advantage of the respiratory surface being thin, meaning that if this respiratory surface could be thick, the diffusion of gases could take much time, and hence it could affect some of the processes. Another feature in common, all respiratory surfaces are large in surface area, meaning that they occupy a large surface area in the body of an organism. And the advantage of this, it offers a large surface area for maximum absorption of gases and emission of gases. For instance, the human lungs, they occupy the chest. All the chest cavity is occupied by the lungs. In proportion with the other body parts, the lungs, they take large surface area of the body compared to the other organ in order to maximize the exchange of the respiratory gases. The third point is they are highly supplied with blood vessels. Dear student, being highly supplied with blood vessels or packed with blood vessels, meaning that they have many blood capillaries. The larger the number of capillaries, the more the blood is flowing. The more the blood is flowing into the lung, the higher accumulation of the blood vessels ensure higher accumulation of the blood and the higher absorption of oxygen and the higher elimination of carbon dioxide. Another common feature of the respiratory surface, they are permeable. They are permeable. And we say they are selective permeable. Permeable means they allow the gases to diffuse across them. If this respiratory surface were impermeable, means they could resist the passage of gases across them. Another common feature of the respiratory surface, the respiratory surfaces are extensive. They're extensive. They're extensive because they contain collagen fibers, which can expand and contract. Being extensive means they provide a large surface area for the exchange of gases. Dear student, knowing this and the advantage, now we have responded to the question of how the respiratory surfaces are adapted to their function they perform. So you must first outline the feature and light the advantage of that feature to the function of these organs. Then let us see question number 2. The question number 2 reads, describe the mechanism of exchange of respiratory gases across the lungs of human. The mechanism of exchange. In other words, how the gaseous exchange occur in the lung. Dear students, in the introduction, I said the two respiratory gases, they move across the respiratory surface by diffusion. So the mechanism is diffusion. Respiratory gases, here we are talking of carbon dioxide and oxygen, occurs across the respiratory surface by diffusion. Meaning that the exchange of respiratory gases do not use energy. Simply is the diffusion of gases. And the diffusion, meaning that is a movement of solute molecule from the area of higher concentration to the area of low concentration. Here we are talking of carbon dioxide and oxygen. And we have been asked to tell how the carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged across the human lungs. Assuming this is the environment, and this is the human lung. The environment, we are talking of the atmosphere. The atmosphere contains large amount of gases. Apart from carbon dioxide, there are nitrogens, hydrogen, water vapor. But here our concentration will be on carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the carbon dioxide in the lung, the concentration differ. So the concentration of carbon dioxide in the lung is very high compared to the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Or in other words, we can say the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is lower than the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the lungs. Hence, carbon dioxide will remove or will diffuse from the lungs into the environment. And this is the carbon dioxide will diffuse from the blood capillaries of the lung, which we call the pulmonary capillaries, from the pulmonary capillaries into the alveolar sac. From the alveolar sac, this will move through the respiratory system to the atmosphere. So this has been taken to the atmosphere, but another respiratory gas, this is the carbon dioxide, this is oxygen. The concentration of oxygen between these two environments is the concentration of oxygen in the atmosphere or in the alveolar sac is higher than the concentration of oxygen in the pulmonary capillary. Hence, the oxygen will tend to move from the area of higher concentration or higher partial pressure to the area of low partial pressure by diffusion. Meaning that oxygen will diffuse from the alveolar sacs into the pulmonary capillaries. Then this is taken through the bloodstream to the respiring tissues, where it is used in respiration to release energy in the form of ATP. Carbon dioxide will be taken from the lungs to the surrounding as a waste product. So the mechanism of exchange is due to concentration gradient. The gas will tend to move from the area of higher concentration to the area of low concentration. Simple that the blood reaching the lungs or reaching the pulmonary capillaries contain large amount of carbon dioxide, and the alveolar sacs, they contain large amount of oxygen. So oxygen will diffuse into the pulmonary capillary, and carbon dioxide will diffuse out of the blood capillary into the alveolar sac, then taken out. Dear student, let us have a short break, then when we come back, we'll continue with the said question. Yeah, dear student, welcome once again. Let us see question number 3. The question number 3 reads, why are alveoli very efficient to their function? Dear student, you need to understand the meaning of this alveoli. First of all, let us see the lungs. The lungs, particularly the mammalian lung, including the human being, it comprises of the tubules where gases passes. That is, they have a trachea which branch into the bronchus. The bronchus, they branch into the bronchioles. The bronchioles, they branch into the terminal bronchioles. Then this they terminate into the sac-like structure. These are known as alveoli. Veolas. The plural, that is alveoli. So the alveoli, this is the functional unit of the lungs. The functional unit simply because this is the place where the gaseous exchange takes place. It is where the oxygen diffuses into the pulmonary. These are the pulmonary capillaries, and carbon dioxide, it diffuses out of the pulmonary capillaries into the alveoli sac. Then this is carried through these tubules to the trachea, then through the nostril to the atmosphere. So the lungs, without the alveoli, it cannot perform its function. Then let us see how these alveoli are capable of performing their function. In other words, we need to understand how the alveoli performs their function, or adaptation of this to the function they perform. The alveoli, we say this is the specialized area of the lungs where the gaseous exchange takes place. They have the following adaptation which make them perform their function efficiently. First, alveoli are very many in number. They are about 700 millions per lung. So there are many in number. Very numerous. The advantage of this, being many in number, they increase the surface area of gaseous exchange. Or being many in number, they facilitate a rapid exchange of gases. Many gases, that is oxygen, will diffuse in, and the large amount of carbon dioxide will diffuse out. Another feature that improves their function, the alveoli are always moist. They are moist in nature. What the meaning? Or what is the advantage of this alveoli being moist? They are moist because the respiratory gases exchanged across them are in solution form. So being moist, it facilitates rapid exchange of respiratory gases, meaning that carbon dioxide in the form of solution will diffuse easily out from the blood capillaries into the alveolar sacs, then taken out. Also, the oxygen from the atmosphere is first moistened. The oxygen is first moistened by this system, because one of the major functions of the respiratory system, particularly the upper respiratory system, we are talking of the nostril and the ciliars, they moisten the dry gas coming into the body. So being moist facilitates the rapid exchange. Another, the third point is alveoli are extensive. They are made up of the elastic fibers, the protein material which are collagens, meaning that they allow the recoiling of the lung. So they are elastic in nature. They allow easy recoiling of the lung, and hence facilitate the exchange of gases. The membrane of the alveoli is very thin membrane. The membrane is very thin, hence the respiratory gases take minimum time to pass across the alveoli sacs, and hence increase the efficiency of gaseous exchange. Another point is the presence of the fluid. The fluid known as the surfactant fluid. The surfactant fluid, this is produced by the alveoli cells. Alveoli cells contain special cells. They are known as the pneumocyte cell. So pneumocyte cell, there are two. There is pneumocyte cell type 1, and there are pneumocyte cells type 2. So the pneumocyte cells type 2 is responsible with secretion of the surfactant oil. Surfactant oil or fluid. This fluid facilitates easy transmission of carbon dioxide and oxygen. Because the advantage of this, secreted by the pneumocyte 2, it facilitates or speeds up. It speeds up the transmission of carbon dioxide and oxygen. That is the major function they perform. So the presence of these fluids in the alveolar sacs, it enables easy diffusion of carbon dioxide out of the blood capillaries and oxygen into the blood capillaries. Another thing, the surfactant oil, it protects the collapse of the alveolar sacs, prevents the collapse of the alveolar sacs. Because the alveolar sacs are like bags, meaning that during pumping air in and out, they may collapse. So to make sure that these sacs are not collapsing, the surfactant oil prevents them from collapsing. Also, the alveolar sacs are selective. Number 6, they are selective, permeable. Membranes, meaning that they allow some gases to pass across them and prevent the other. Or in other words, we can say it allows some gases to pass through them and prevent the other completely. For example, in the atmosphere, we have a large percent of the nitrogen gas. We have the hydrogen gas. There are the carbon dioxide in a very little amount. We have the oxygen, which is almost 20%. We have the water vapor and the inert gases, the inert gases. So only oxygen is allowed to pass across the alveolar sacs. So the nitrogen, hydrogen, and the other gases cannot pass across because these are selective, permeable. So only oxygen will diffuse, and from the capillary only carbon dioxide will diffuse out. Dear student, when you are told to explain the efficiency of a certain organ, means you are required to provide the advantages of the structure it possesses to its function, or adaptations of that particular organ to the function it performs. Dear student, in summing up this subtopic of the respiratory surfaces, you need to know the respiratory surfaces of every organism and why that particular organism possesses that particular respiratory surface. And I said before, the respiratory surface of an organism depends with the habitat where that particular organism is found. The lungs of the human being cannot operate when in water. That is why you can ask yourself, when a human being is dipped in water, suffers from oxygen deficiency and finally die. Likewise, when a fish is taken outside of the water, it may die. You can see that scenario. The reason is the gills of the fish are capable of taking only dissolved oxygen. They cannot take dry oxygen. That's why when they are taken outside from water, they tend to die within a short time. Likewise, the human being cannot respire or cannot take the dissolved oxygen in water. That is why the human being, when dipped in water for a while, it may definitely result into death because of lack of oxygen. Not that the oxygen is not there. The oxygen in water is there, but the oxygen is in the form of dissolved oxygen, which the lung cannot use, or the oxygen present in water cannot be taken by the lungs. Thank you, students, for your time, for following me, for watching the Darasa online. Welcome to the next lesson. I hope you have enjoyed a lot, and now you are in a position to answer all questions pertaining respiratory sufferances, the adaptations, and other questions of that nature. Thank you very much. Bye.